Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joel Simpkins, your host of the Simpkins Show podcast, being brought to you by the Simpkins Media Group, or SMG. Welcome to episode 2 of the Simpkins Show podcast. This particular episode, we'll be delving into hip-hop and one of its most pivotal years, 1988. Why is it so important? Because before 1988, most people saw hip-hop as a passing craze. They saw it as something that wasn't going to last. They saw it as something that wasn't even considered music. It was a waste of vinyl. It was a waste of tape. It was a waste of CD space. But yet, guess what? 2023, what did we celebrate? 50 years of hip-hop, which was started in 1973 by DJ Herc, cool DJ Herc that is, on Sedgwick Ave, because he was throwing a party at a community center for his sister so that she can get some school clothes. 1973, 2023, 50 years. And by 1988, it was finally determined that hip-hop was here to stay. Hip-hop wasn't going anywhere. Hip-hop was starting to make some serious money because a lot of your rappers that were on smaller labels were starting to get distribution deals with bigger labels. Def Jam Recordings, which was started by Russell Simmons and Rick Rubin, had distribution through Columbia Records and CBS, one of the largest record labels in the whole wide world. Yeah. Giving LL Cool J his start, and he would be the first artist to record an album for Def Jam Recordings in Columbia. Also put out their first single. Jive Records had distribution through Arista Records originally, then through RCA. Cold Chillin' Records, which used to be Prism Records, had distribution through Warner Brothers. And First Priority Records had distribution through Atlantic. So you see where I'm going. Record labels started to see the power of hip-hop and to see the lucrative aspect of hip-hop. And so they're starting to give it a chance. Not only those labels, but even labels like Ruthless Records would get distribution through Priority Records. They would get distribution through Atlantic, their sub-label Atco, and at one point, Epic Records through Sony, CBS. So hip-hop was beginning to really take off. And in the year 1988, there were a lot of great albums that were released that year. I will not try to go through all of them because there are just too many albums that got put out that year. Just a lot. So I'm going to deal with the main ones that most people know about and the ones that I know about. Okay? First thing I want to talk about is the first... the highest charting top 40 single from the Billboard Top 100 in 1988 was LL Cool J's Going Back to Cali, which was produced by Rick Rubin on Def Jam in Columbia. Going Back to Cali came from a soundtrack called Less Than Zero, but it was number 40 on the Billboard Top 100, highest charting hip-hop single of that year. So let us begin, shall we? One of the first records was Too Short. Album's called Life Is Too Short. From Dangerous Music, Jive RCA. The next one, Biz Markie, Going Off, on Cold Chillin' and Warner Brothers Records. And some of the songs that most people are familiar with from that album is Pickin' Boogers, Vapors, Nobody Beats the Wiz, and Make the Music with Your Mouth Biz featuring TJ Swan. Now, what a lot of people didn't know was most of these songs on this album, the writer of the lyrics was actually Big Daddy Kane. But if you look at the lyrics, he was going by his government name, Antonio Hardy. So when you look at that album, all of those songs were written by Big Daddy Kane. Next, DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. They did a double LP, which was hip hop's first double album, called He's the DJ, I'm the Rapper on Jive RCA. Records like Brand New Funk, Nightmare on My Street, and Parents Just Don't Understand. Now, that was the big hit that had the video and the whole 9 yards. In fact, the way that video was kind of, set up and arranged made way for the way the intro for Fresh Prince of Bel-Air would be set up. You'll see some similarities in both of them. But He's the DJ, I'm the Rapper. The first record was basically, that was the Fresh Prince's record. The second record was a DJ album, so that was basically DJ Jazzy Jeff's record. Most of the stuff on the second album is, DJ stuff and scratching and all kind of things, right? Okay, next one. Boogie Down Productions, BDP. By Any Means Necessary, Jive RCA. This is important because prior to that, they had done Criminal Minded the year before, and Boogie Down Production pretty much was KRS-One and DJ Scott LaRock. But unfortunately, DJ Scott LaRock got gunned down trying to stop a fight. So he got killed. And so they didn't have the greatest deal with their prior label, B-Boy Records. So they signed to Jive RCA, and KRS-One decided to keep the legacy of DJ Scott LaRock alive and brought in as a DJ his brother, Kenny Parker, DJ Kenny Parker. That album had My Philosophy, a song about wearing prophylactics called Jimmy. It was just an amazing record, an awesome record. Next album, MC Light, Light as a Rock. That was her debut on First Priority and Atlantic Records. Records like Paper Thin, Light as a Rock. I mean, it was just, and she still has a great voice today. Still can flow, still can rhyme, and will kill you in a rap fight today. MC Light. Next, Run DMC, their fourth album for Profile Records, Tougher Than Leather, which featured Run's House and beats to the rhyme. Now, around this time, they had done a movie called Tougher Than Leather. This is not the soundtrack to that movie at all. It's their fourth album. It's not a soundtrack. It's a regular album. But a couple of songs did wind up in the movie. Okay. Next, Dougie Fresh and the Get Fresh Crew, the world's greatest entertainer, on Reality and Fantasy Records. And their biggest record off of that album was Keep Rising to the Top. Another big hit, which sampled, of course, Keep Rising to the Top. Okay. Next album, EPMD, Strictly Business, on Fresh and Sleeping Bag Records. And the big single off that was You Gots to Chill. Big record. Next album, Stetsasonic, In Full Gear, on Tommy Boy and Warner Brothers. Now, one of the members of Stetsasonic would go on to be the producer for De La Soul, DJ Paul. DJ Prince Paul is his name. But he was a part of Stetsasonic. Two of the big hits on there is Sally and Talking All That Jazz, which they took aim at James Mtume for talking about sampling on a radio show. And basically all he was saying was, if you're going to sample people, pay them. Because back then, people weren't getting paid for samples. They were just sampling them. There was no structure about getting samples cleared and paying people for the samples you use. And back then, to be honest, most DJs, most producers, in all honesty, weren't trying to steal music. They were just showing how they thought it was dope, and they just used it in the record. They weren't trying to steal, but that was all. That was James and Mtume. Now James and Mtume came from the group Mtume, the same people that did Juicy Fruit. But he was just saying pay him, and Daddy-O from Stetsasonic, heard what he heard, did not like what he heard, and so he made a whole record about James and Mtume. Of course, later they wound up, being friends, and they wound up being okay once they were able to get together and he was able to explain what he really meant, and they wound up being fine. But that's a great record. Stetsasonic was also known as hip-hop's first real band, even before the Roots. Stetsasonic was a full band before the Roots. Next, Big Daddy Kane, debut album, Long Live the Kane. Cold Chill and Warner Brothers Records. The two big records off of there was Raw and Ain't No Half Steppin'. Man, Kane, when he came out kicking tail and taking names. Like, there was nobody touching Kane at the time. Nobody. He was it. And it was a great album. Next, an album that's near and dear to my heart. Public Enemy. It takes a nation of millions to hold us back. That was their second album on Def Jam and Columbia Records. And that album was a huge hit. It is known today as one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time. And the singles that came off of that album was Don't Believe the Hype, Night of the Living Bassheads, Black Steel, and The Hour of Chaos. And still to this day, it is a favorite among hip-hop fans. It's a powerful, powerful album. Great album. Eric B. and Rakim, next. Follow the Leader on Uni and MCA Records. Hits off that album was Follow the Leader and Microphone Fiend. I'm telling you, wasn't nobody rhyming like Rakim. He changed the whole flow of hip-hop, changed the way hip-hop records were made, changed the way that people wrote their rhymes. In 1988, it took a whole about face because of Rakim. And that album is just something else. Next, Salt and Pepper. Their second album, Salt with a Deadly Pepper, on Next Plateau and London Records. The single that was released was Shake Your Thing with EU, Experience Unlimited. They're the same people that did The Butt for the School Day soundtrack. And they're a go-go group from Washington, D.C. And their leader was bass player, lead vocalist by the name of Sugar Bear. And it was a big single. Another big single off that record was Get Up. And on the soundtrack to the movie Colors, Let the Rhythm Run, which is probably one of the hardest records they ever did. I mean, man, that record was tough. So, that's Salt and Pepper, with Salt with a Deadly Pepper. Next one, which contains a record that still rocks the house today. I don't care where you're DJing. You put this record on today and people still lose their minds. That's Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock with It Takes Two on Profile Records. And of course, the two big singles off that was It Takes Two and Joy and Pain, which was based off of the record by Maze featuring Frankie Beverly. Okay. Next, 2 Live Crew, Move Something. It was originally released on the Luke Skywalker label, but George Lucas, who, kind of ran the whole Star Wars Empire thing, he sued them for using the Luke Skywalker title. So Luke Skywalker Records had to change their name to Luke Records. So any original copies you see of that album is going to say Luke Skywalker, but if you get later pressings of it, it's just going to say Luke Records, and that's why. And the two singles for that album that were the big singles was Move Something and Do Wah Diddy. Now, you have to find a clean version of this album because this is some of the most nastiest, most filthiest stuff you ever heard on a rap record. But that's what made Two Live Crew what they were. Two Live Crew was actually originally from California, but a couple of the members moved to Miami, Florida once Luther Campbell heard them and really liked what they were doing. And he himself joined the group, and they became the Two Live Crew. What was funny to me was that if you bought any of those old Luke Skywalker records, no matter who the artist was, you know what they would say, you know, unauthorized duplication is, you know, unauthorized and, you know, can send you to jail. No, that's not how he did his warnings. His warnings read, unauthorized duplications will get you messed up by the ghetto style DJs. Yeah, don't make no copies of this record without permission because the ghetto style DJs out of Miami will kill you. That was the most hilarious thing I ever read, but they meant it. Two Live Crew, Move Something. Next, Ice-T, Power. That's his second album on Sire and Warner Brothers Records. The two big singles were I'm Your Pusher, which is basically a rewrite of I'm Your Pusher Man by Curtis Mayfield, and High Roller. Now, people bought this album for the album cover. And if you ever seen the album cover for Power, you know why. People wouldn't even play the record. They'd just hang the cover on the wall. Because basically it's a picture of Ice-T, his girlfriend in a bathing suit, and his DJ, and they all got these high-profile weapons with them. And brothers lost their mind when they saw that album cover. That's for a lot of people. That's the only reason why they bought it, just for the cover. They didn't listen to the album. They just like the album cover. Next, MC Hammer. Let's Get It Started. His debut on Capitol EMI Records. Now, MC Hammer originally was like a gospel rapper at first. But then when he got his deal with Capitol Records, basically he reissued and re-recorded some of the songs that were on the gospel record and put some other songs on it. I don't remember what it was titled originally. And that first album that he did as a gospel act is hard to find. But he had tracks like Let's Get It Started, Pump It Up, Turn This Mother Out, which of course sampled, you know, Parliament. You know, tear the roof off the sucker. And They Put Me in the Mix. MC Hammer was nothing to play around with. He had the glasses, the real baggy pants, and his dancers. And I mean, he was amazing. But what you learn later is he was not a punk. Talk about his mama, talk about his crew. He will come see you with his folks and commence to start whooping your tail. So people learn real quick he's not this punk you think he is. Just because he dance and all that. No. He done nobody to mess around with. Next, Kid and Play. Too Hype on Select Records. That's their debut. The big single off that was Rolling with Kid and Play. Now, a lot of people kind of looked down on Kid and Play at first because their records had no cussing in it whatsoever. I mean, it was clean. They're clean cut, nice guys. They're like, they suck. But man, once they got their cartoon and once they started doing, you know, movies like House Party and Class Act and things like that, yeah, they made a good name for themselves after that. Slick Rick is next with his debut solo album, because he used to be part of Dougie Fresh and the Get Fresh crew back in the day. You know, with records like The Show and Lottie Dottie. Remember that? Well, this is his debut called The Great Adventures of Slick Rick on Def Jam in Columbia. The singles off that one is Teenage Love, Children's Story, and Hey Young World. Now, what made this album special is that half of the album is produced by the Bomb Squad. These are the same people that produced Public Enemy. Okay? But the rest of the album is pretty much produced by Slick Rick himself. So songs like Children's Story, Hey Young World, that's his production. That's his stuff. Teenage Love was produced by the Bomb Squad. But one of my favorite records off that album, it's just an album cut. It's called The Moment I Feared. Some of the greatest storytelling you'll ever hear from Slick Rick. And that one was produced by the Bomb Squad. Next, the Jungle Brothers. Straight Out of the Jungle on Warlock Records. They would later sign to Warner Brothers. But they had a house record on there called I'll House You. And people thought they was kidding, but they were serious. They will house you. Black is Black featuring Q-Tip. And Jungle Brothers were the foundation of what would later become the Native Tongues. Native Tongues being A Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, Queen Latifah, Moni Love, Black Sheep, and others. Yep. So, Jungle Brothers, straight out the jungle. Next, Eazy-E. Easy Does It on Priority and Ruthless Records. Two singles come from there is Easy Does It and We Want Easy. We Want Easy samples We Want Bootsy by Bootsy Collins, being produced by DJ Yella and Dr. Dre. Now, believe it or not, that album came out before Straight Outta Compton. Straight Outta Compton actually came out in 89, not 88. So they actually put Eazy's album out first. Then they put out NWA the following year. Next group, Original Concept. Straight from the Basement of Cooley High on Def Jam, Columbia Records. The album itself really isn't all that great. Really, if you want to check them out at their best, check out the 12-inch singles that they put out 2 years earlier in 86. Pump That Bass. Can You Feel It? I mean, still, you put those records on today and they'll get a party going, okay? But, you know, the album really wasn't all that great. They only did one and they just disappeared. In fact, one of them on, Dr. Dre, their Dr. Dre, not the LA Dr. Dre, but their Dr. Dre started doing an MTV show called Yo MTV Raps. Yeah. All right, so in this year, 2 Christian hip-hop groups came out with albums, okay? A gentleman by the name of Michael Peace came out with Rappin' Bold on Reunion Records and Word Records. These are Christian labels. I listened to the album. Just my opinion. The problem with most Christian rap records that came out around this time was that they were 2-3 years behind production-wise. And a lot of it had to do with, not having the same budgets that some of these, more mainstream rappers had because of the labels they were on and things like that. But it also had to do with a lot of them having the fear that if they sounded too up to date, that the church would look at them as being too worldly. You're trying to act like the world. You're trying to fit in with the world. And so it hurt Christian rap for a long time. And, you could tell that whoever produced that album wasn't even a hip-hop producer at all. You could hear it. The rhymes are okay, but the production just isn't there. Next album, PID, Preachers in Disguise. Album called Here We Are, which pretty much side 1 is the whole album. Side 2 are DJ mixes of all of the songs that are on side 1. And they were on a label called Graceland and Star Song Communications, which again, Christian labels. And in all honesty, they sounded more like Run DMC than anybody else. Just that whole flow. It was okay. It was cool. But again, I remember being in '88, and I'm growing up on Run DMC. I'm growing up on Houdini. I'm growing up on serious hip hop. And so when I heard a lot of Christian rap around that time, it just wasn't it. And to be honest with you, in my opinion, most Christian rap did not become good until the 90s. Part of it is because some of your better Christian rappers that came out in the 90s were originally from New York. They just moved out west to California. Groups like Dynamic Twins, they're from New York. Soldiers for Christ, the guy that was in charge of Soldiers for Christ, his name was Super C back then, but he now goes by the name of Soup the Chemist. He was originally from New York, and even in his production, you hear it. He's New York. He just happens to be in California. And so once you get to that phase, they stop being scared of being up to date. They stop being scared of doing, new things, of sampling Public Enemy, sampling jazz, sampling funk and hip hop. They stop being scared of sounding quote unquote too worldly. Because the truth of the matter is, you had to somewhat compete a little bit when it came to production. Because when you're hearing people like NWA, you're hearing DJ Yella and Dr. Dre's productions on those records. You're hearing LL Cool J's productions, the productions on those albums by people like Rick Rubin and others, Bomb Squad, Public Enemy. And I mean, Public Enemy had so much noise, it was ridiculous. So you're hearing that, and then you're listening to Christian hip hop records, and they're nowhere near it. You're like, you don't even want to hear what they got to say. So it really wouldn't be until the 90s that Christian hip hop broke out of its shell and said, we got to win as many people as we can, so we need to update our style. We need to update our production, our lyricism, our flow, our delivery. And I'm telling you, mid-90s, one of the best Christian rap albums to ever be released was by a group called the Gospel Gangsters. Gang affiliated, 1994, Holy Terror Mixed Records. Produced by a guy named DJ Dove, who was Puerto Rican, but had so much soul in him, you thought he was black. But he was originally a DJ for Soldiers for Christ. So, there you have it. 1988, a pivotal year for hip hop. A pivotal year for rap music. A lot of variety. The West Coast is starting to come in hard. New York is still holding it down, but you have different types of sounds coming out of New York, not just one. And hip hop made everybody understand, we're not going anywhere. We're here to stay. So, as we conclude with that, here's your spiritual nugget before I leave you. John 3:16 says this: God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever will believe in him would not perish, but have everlasting life. What is the last thing that you've done to show and to prove your love for your brother or your sister? What have you given away? Or are you sitting in a corner waiting for people to just give to you? What have you given to someone? Because love isn't love, as Commission said, till you've given it away. So as I close out this show, give love away to somebody. And they don't need to deserve it. You give it to them because you have it and because they need it. Well, this concludes the second episode of the Simpkins Show podcast, being brought to you by the Simpkins Media Group. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.